As promised, we will go over the defensive end room today. Plus, is Chip Kelly's offense coming to Cleveland?
You're listening to the What the Elf Was That podcast, an iconoclastic look at the latest Cleveland Browns news. The What the Elf Was That podcast is part of the Fanatical Elves podcast network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here's your host, Joel Cade.
What the elf was that? Thank you for joining us this week on What the Elf Was That. This week we have Randy Gurzy, editor of Dog Pound Daily. Say hi, Randy.
Hey, Joel, thanks a lot for having me, man. Looking forward to this.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I write so many articles weekly for Dog Pound Daily that I know that you and I are in constant contact. You know, actually, folks, that's a joke. I don't write many.
You
at
are
all,
definitely the most tenured writer. So, so you have that going on. Although you were there before me, but then I think you got kicked off for inactivity, and then
no, but that doesn't count.
Okay, so I didn't know if there's like a lapse in there, or if like you keep that tenure.
I keep the tenure.
Cool.
I keep the tenure. So this week, I promised you guys last week that we'd talk about the defensive end room, and then we didn't do it. So I got to keep that promise up this week. We're talking about the defensive end room. And I've mentioned on the last podcast, Randy, just to catch you up, how the Browns are going under Jim Schwartz from a single gap system where a defensive lineman is responsible for one gap to a double gap system. And so what we've been doing is kind of going through the defensive line rooms, asking, does this person fit a single gap, double gap system, and anything else that comes up to mind. So Randy, your initial thoughts. What do you think about the defensive end room this year under Jim Schwartz?
I really like the defensive end room a lot. The first thing that you're kind of going to notice is, I actually have it coming out in an article I wrote tomorrow. I was talking about, the first day of OTA is kind of seeing how everybody fits in. And the first thing you're going to notice is they not only replaced what they lost from last year with Jadeveon Clowney, Chase Winovich leaving, but they also went out and got, Zadarius Smith, who I think is an improvement, is an upgrade. I think that Okoronkwo is an upgrade over Chase Winovich. And then they also add Isaiah McGuire in the fourth round, who I absolutely loved. I thought that fourth round was a steal for him. I thought for sure he'd be, a third round pick. But then you've also still got Alex Wright, who I was really, really high on last year, coming in as a third round pick. But I think another thing you'll notice with that defensive end room, and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong if you're seeing this too, but I feel like they've set it up to where you have versatility to not only use them at the defensive end, but you can slide guys like Alex Wright, who's 270 pounds, in as a defensive tackle, as three technique on pass rushing situations.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the defensive line room as a whole, we haven't kind of gotten into this a lot, but the defensive line room as a whole is becoming more fluid. Yeah. In that you can have some defensive tackles play out at the end. You can play some defensive ends in on defensive tackle, depending on what the situation is addressed. I think the real change on the defensive line is the technique that's going to be required to play defensive line. And not everyone is built to play this technique, is what I've noticed when I went back and did film study. I went back and I watched film on Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas, Zadarius Smith, Ogbo Okoronkwo, you got to say that slow. Isaiah McGuire, the whole crew back there. And I think there are some defensive ends that are more ready to handle the challenge that Schwartz is going to give as opposed to Joe Woods. Who do you like in this room, Randy? Who do you think is like, I think this person's going to shine under this defense?
I think Okoronkwo will. I think that he's got that kind of stand-up pass rushing ability, which is interesting because they have got a few guys that have that. You got him. You have Zadarius Smith did that in Baltimore and Green Bay, and Isaiah McGuire did it a little bit at Missouri as well. But I think that Schwartz will move them around. He does some of that wide nine where he really puts the defensive ends out a little bit further to where those guys that have that, first step quickness can really shine. And I think that he's got that. I think he's an ascending player. I know last year, I believe he had like 5 sacks. He's only got like 9 sacks in his career. But he really started to have really a lot of success, a really high pass rush win rate last year. So I think he's somebody that I can see. I don't think, I never thought he was an every down defensive end. I thought even after they signed him, like, hey, you got to get somebody else that can play in there. You could probably be asking Alex Wright to do that a lot. And I didn't really think he was ready. So the Zadarius Smith move was huge. It gives you another year to get Wright ready, and it keeps from really kind of beating up Okoronkwo on the first and second downs when you can let him come out there and just really pin his ears back in passing situations.
So I noticed you're saying stuff about Alex Wright. I think Alex Wright, of the people who are in the stable, is probably best set up to succeed under Jim Schwartz, because take out Myles Garrett, take out Ogbo, take out Zadarius Smith. I think Alex Wright is the only one in college who played a defensive end that would be similar to what he's doing in Jim Schwartz's defense. He had to play double gap. He wasn't the most technically sound defensive end, which is why he's probably going in the third round. But at least there's a ball of clay there. Yeah. I'm concerned with some of the other guys that you don't really have that. And in particular, I think Isaiah Thomas here might be a real... I don't know if he might end up being on the practice squad for this situation starts. Any thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I did not long after the draft, and this was even before Zadarius Smith. I did a prediction for a 53-man roster, and I had Thomas kind of on the outside looking in. And I really do like him. I think he was a great 7th-round pick. The Browns haven't had a ton of success with 7th-round picks, so he came in and he did well.
Demetric Felton.
He was a 6th-rounder.
Oh man, I was hoping he was a 7th. Okay.
Yeah. He was a 6th-rounder, and that's why everyone thought he was going to be great, because Donovan Peoples-Jones was a 6th-rounder the year before. So it's like, Andrew Berry did it again. But but I agree with you. I love Alex Wright's game. I've been a fan of his. He was somebody I really, I didn't know a lot about him until the scouting combine last year, and I really just started watching him and seeing what he can do. And just like you said, he's a moldable piece of clay, and I think Joe Woods got a lot of heat. And a lot of it I don't think was deserved. I think that he had his flaws, but at the same time, you can only do so much of what you're given, and he had a whole lot of injuries. Didn't really have the best defensive line. Part of that also was on him because those players he preferred. But I think it wasn't just people were like, "Oh, Joe Woods is terrible, let him go." I think there was more to it than that. But I think Jim Schwartz will be huge for Alex Wright, because we saw a little bit. Saw him flash a little as a rookie, but now you get a much, much more successful defensive coordinator who has that kind of that background and that gravitas to really push right where he needs to go.
One of the things I liked about Alex Wright was that he played in a double gap scheme in college. So when he came into the Browns, he had to learn how to just okay, I'm just going to shoot this gap and get in the backfield and try to disrupt. As we're in college, he's doing a lot of more reading, reacting, and then doing that. So I think this is going to play to his strength. Speaking of our defensive end room, some jerk went out there on Dog Pound Daily and wrote this article about how Zadarius Smith, is he a locker room cancer? So tell me, as the editor of Dog Pound Daily, who was the jerk, number one, and two, have you fired him yet?
Joel Cade's the jerk, and no. He's got a lot of blackmail against me, so he gets away with tons of stuff. But
he's got tenure on you too.
Yeah, he's got tenure on me, so I can't touch him. I have a file. I have a very, very long file on him, but I can't do anything with just yet. But no, it was funny because I kind of had a few snarky responses on Twitter. I do my best not to respond on Twitter, because people don't go there to have engaging conversations. They go there to call you an idiot. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if I want to get judged and be called an idiot, I'll call my mother. I don't need Twitter to do that. So,
I've got a brother that's good for that too.
Yeah, my brother too. Yeah, we have family for that. But a couple of them I responded because they were just like, "Where is this coming from?" I'm like, well, if you read the article, he's responding to what Albert Breer said. I don't think Albert Breer was right, but I thought it was a fair question. Like, hey, if somebody who's got the pull that Albert Breer does is over here throwing that around, that, hey, maybe he's a locker room cancer, that's a fair question. So, what was your take on it? Would you agree that?
So my take was just essentially what I'm sure you're sick of hearing me say over the past 7 years when I've written a Dog Pound Daily, which is at some point you have to bring in people with character issues, because as Mike Pettin said, and I think Mike Pettin's right, you don't win games with Boy Scouts. And you're going to have some people that may have a sketchy past, and you bring them in because they can play football. And I think the same thing's going on with Elijah Moore. I mean, he's had some arguments over there in New York. He's had some issues, but he can play football, despite what other people I talk to think. He can play football. So, you know, you got to take chances on guys. I don't think he's going to be a locker room guy. I think his issues are around contracts. And then when he gets upset about his contract, he may let it affect him a little bit. But who of us doesn't let our personal life affect our work from now and then?
I think it's hilarious because people act like, players are just supposed to be perfect. And you don't realize, like, the majority of these guys are younger. They're all younger. They're all younger than you and I, but the majority of us that are people on Twitter, it's like, these guys are still younger than you. And you're sitting here, in my career, if I did this or this or this, like, no, if you were a 20-something-year-old and became a millionaire, you'd probably be a jerk. Like, I would have been absolutely awful. Like, if I was 21, 22, being a millionaire. So to sit here and just act like these guys are supposed to be, like, morally superior, and if anybody doesn't check every single box, if they're a terrible human being, it's ridiculous. And another thing you pointed out right there, you're saying, which one of us hasn't been unhappy in a certain situation? Well, a lot of times that you're true. You look at our day-to-day job. You may be at a job, you're not happy with the pay, maybe you're not happy with the hours, maybe your boss doesn't respect you, whatever, and you end up finding a better job, you leave, and you succeed there, you do well there. So why is it such a crazy idea that Elijah Moore wasn't happy with New York but might be great in Cleveland, if he's happier there? Same as Darius Smith, maybe. And Smith, I don't think it's a long-term option. Maybe he's only here for 1 year.
I agree.
He could be motivated in that 1 year to come in and try to prove that he can get one more good contract from somebody else. And sometimes it's great to have that guy.
I agree. I mean, I think I agree. Sometimes you got to take the chances. Just because they don't succeed one place doesn't mean they can't succeed somewhere else. All right, let's switch gears here onto an interview by Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Did I get that right? Yes. I don't follow the quarterbacks that much. I like the line, people. I get all these linemen correct, except for Ogbo. I can't say his name. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was doing an interview, one of those stand-ups after a practice, whatever, and said that he felt like the Browns' offense was a lot like Chip Kelly's offense. So that raises the question, as any of you who may have heard the Football Philosophy and Rocket Science podcast, where Elliot and I talked about the cap-friendly offense because it has a fullback, tailback, 2 tight ends, whatever. If you're going to the Chip Kelly offense, how different, Randy, do you think that's going to be from what Kevin Stefanski is running right now?
I think it'll be different than what we're used to seeing, but I think it's what Stefanski's wanted to do all along. I don't think Stefanski really wanted to be that run the ball 20 to 30 times a game kind of guy. He wants to be able to run. He wants to be able to do that. But if you look at a lot of time that he was in Minnesota, they were much more of an aerial attack. I don't think he ever wanted to be paying, almost $20 million a year to running backs. And just bulldozing people. You want to have that ability, but I think he understands that in the NFL today, you're going to have to be able to win with your quarterback. You're going to have to be able to win with passing. And the Chip Kelly offense, I think a lot of people get confused by it. They hear it and they think it's, same as just a zone read quarterback running all the time, when it's really not. It's just about tempo. It's about movement, getting to the line, getting the plays, kind of having some deception. They call a lot of the same plays, but we'll have different options. Your receiver's going to line up in the same spot, but based on what the receiver or the safety or the corners are lined up, they have 3 or 4 different routes, whatever. They're going to run off of that. So it's just a lot of, deception, a lot of tempo, and it definitely helps when your quarterback can run, which was kind of Chip Kelly's downfall. I won't dive into that just yet, but I have a theory on that if you want to hear it. But what I like the best about what Cleveland has done is I feel like they've put quarterbacks together. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was one of my favorite quarterbacks in the draft. I absolutely loved him. But they've got quarterbacks who can play the same offense. And if you notice what happened with Jacoby Brissett, they had to kind of tailor their offense to him. Then when Deshaun Watson came in, they tried to switch it up a little bit. It didn't work. It was ugly. You're not going to have that this year. If Watson misses any time, whichever quarterback comes in is going to run the same offense. They're not going to run it as well as he is, but you also don't have to have a wholesale change. So I like it. I love the fast-paced offense. I think it would have worked with Chip Kelly if he could have gotten out of his own damn way. And what I was going to say about him, his downfall was he came in and he's got mobile quarterbacks. And and he could actually succeed with them. But media is talking about, it's a run for, you got to have running quarterbacks, got to have mobile quarterbacks. So he was so arrogant and wanted to prove that everybody was wrong and didn't know him, that he went out and got a quarterback with like 80-year-old knees and Sam Bradford just to prove, oh no, I can do it with any quarterback. And it ended up being his downfall. It was like, dude, you had like the perfect offense with, Nick Foles was doing fine in it. Even Tim Tebow he had on the bench. I was like, he probably could have ran that offense a little better than Sam Bradford. And then you had probably a great east-west runner in LaShawn McCoy, great deep field threat, and Deshaun Jackson. He gets rid of all of them, gets Sam Bradford and DeMarco Murray, who's a north-south runner, and it didn't work. It was so ugly. But
yeah,
I like the offense. I like it even better when Chip Kelly doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, I think you said it right there. There's a lot of options, right? You can call the same play, but there's a lot of options based on what the defense is giving you to run. And this was a kind of a system that Deshaun Watson was successful in when he was in Texas. Now, Randy, I know you've got a history of covering Texas football. So I don't know if it was that time during Deshaun Watson, but maybe you could give us some insight. How would Deshaun Watson fit into such an offense?
I mean, he fits perfectly into it because Deshaun Watson he's very underrated as far as like his football intelligence. I don't think people realize how smart he is.
Let me interject here. If you guys haven't had a chance, you should absolutely get one of these post-game pressers where he is explaining what was going on in a play. One, it's funnier than crap to listen to. And two, it's really insightful. Like, he knows exactly what everyone is doing on the field when it goes down. But I digress. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking of one that I'm glad you said that because I was thinking about one that he had when he was in Houston. And it was a game where he literally, I don't think he ever threw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. And afterwards, one of the reporters had asked him, why didn't you try to stretch the field? And he said, do you know what a cover 4 defense is? And then they were kind of laughing like he was being a smart ass, but he's like, I'm really not trying to be a jerk. I'm asking if you understand what it is. And he broke down what the cover 4 is, what the safeties were doing, what the corners were doing, and why they thought their best attack was, to kind of do the short to intermediate. And they ended up winning that game, but it was kind of one of those where it might have been easier on you if you threw the ball downfield, and he explained why they didn't. But you're absolutely right. His football mind is phenomenal. So I think you put a guy like him in an offense where it's, predicated, it's all about reading what the defense is doing and finding the best way to attack it. I think he's excellent at that. And I think they've done a great job of putting the right pieces around him. Elijah Moore is kind of that one piece they were missing. They didn't have that guy that could move from the slot to the outside. That was just People Jones and Cooper are fast. They're fast, but Moore is lightning fast and incredibly shifty, and he could be a nightmare after the catch. So I really like the pieces they did in the offense, and I think it fits what Deshaun Watson does perfectly.
Yeah, I think as I think you and I were trying to temper last year, like last season is just gone before it starts. I think this year the Browns are really putting together an offense for Deshaun Watson. And I think they're putting the piece for Deshaun Watson. It's like they knew he wasn't going to be around last year and was like, well, what do we do? Let's just run this stuff for a year and wait till next year.
I don't think they thought he'd play at all last year. I think they thought he would be suspended for the whole year. And I think one of my favorite things, I'm glad it's over, but last year during the first 11 games of the season, every week we'd get a message from you in Slack that said 10 more, 9 more. It was just kind of reminding us all.
Just the countdown.
It's countdown until they get their real quarterback.
Yeah, right. We're watching a backup. We're watching 330-pound Bravion Roy chase this guy down from behind. So this is not our starting quarterback. Let's just embrace it. Everybody was just like, this guy's great. We should start him over Watson. Like, no, people. No.
I saw people talking about, no, we should never let someone wear number 7 again. I'm like, dude, he went 4-7. Stop it. Like, yeah, he's a likable guy, but come on.
All right, well, we're up on the station break. So you're listening to What the Elf Was That podcast. I'm here with Randy Gurzy, editor for Dog Pound Daily. So stay tuned. After the break, we'll come back and catch up on our Ravens hate for the week and what the NFL owners are up to. Hang on. And we're back. So, as you all know who listen to my podcast faithfully, I love to hate on the Ravens. just because, well, they're the Ravens. So this past week in Ravens news, I always tend to read The Athletic, and there's always some stupidity going on. So I got some more athletic stupidity for you. But Randy, I first have a question for you. So OBJ apparently got a lot of press over the weekend because he got to say "Riders up" at the Preakness. So here's my question for you: how and why is this man still relevant?
I mean, it's hilarious. I don't hate Baker Mayfield.
Correct.
I've met Baker a couple times. I like him. He's an incredibly likable person. But it was, it didn't work in Cleveland. But if you notice, no matter what, people just hate Baker Mayfield. He's a bum. He's no good. But he's actually done more since leaving Cleveland than OBJ has. Yes, OBJ, had a little stretch there with the Rams. They won a Super Bowl. They did that, but that was it. Like he did, and he was third option there. Yeah, he did fine, but I mean, I don't understand it either. Why everyone just assumes OBJ is still like this premier and elite player, and it's hilarious to me that everybody in the NFL seemed to kind of see that, and it took him forever to find a job. And there was like a laughable, I want $20 million a year. And the Ravens were like, we'll guarantee you 15. Like, the hell were you thinking? Like, he wasn't getting $15 million from anybody. I don't know how he's still relevant.
Randy, I would encourage you to go back to some of my Ravens hate segments. I spent an entire segment hating on that contract. Like, what
it's
in
ridiculous.
the world what the elf was that? The contract. Anyway, I understand he wasted all of his money because he wanted his whole contract from Los Angeles Rams to be in Bitcoin and ended up making $20,000 or something for that whole entire season.
It was a great investment. Good job.
I don't know what. I mean, again, OBJ is something all by himself, and I still fail to see how he's relevant in anything and anywhere at any time. Right now, maybe he's just a cultural icon. I've never seen one man make so much money off one catch in his entire life because I can't think of anything else. And I can't think of anything else he's done. But anyway, we should go on to the real reason we're here for that Ravens hate. The Athletic is out there again putting out articles on just how great the Ravens are. And as I pointed out last time, no matter how hard you try to hype this Ravens team, the reality of who they are just keeps coming out. Like, you can say, oh, this is great, that's great. But even in the end, it's like you have to qualify their greatness to the point where it just nullifies everything. But this week, I saw an article, and I'm going to quote something for you here, then we can talk about it, where The Athletic posted an article. And on the front of the article is this triptych, which is 3 pictures. But it has a picture here, a person here, and a person in the middle, like the old Roman Catholic triptychs, right? And in the middle is Lamar Jackson, big smiley face. Then on the left is Todd Monken in a Browns hoodie, okay? And on the right is OBJ in his Rams uniform. They probably didn't want to put him in the Browns uniform because he didn't want to flank Lamar Jackson with 2 Browns and then just say, hey, these are the 2 people that are going to save the Ravens franchise. But the one paragraph that I want to talk about, because it baffles me that this stuff gets published. I mean, I would write this paragraph, Randy. I would expect you to send this paragraph back to me and say, you need to do something better than this. So I didn't get the author's name, which is probably good for the author. So here's the paragraph. With Greg Roman now gone, the Ravens hope they can take the next step with their new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, who has roots in the air raid offense. Now, hang on to that air raid offense piece. Monken was an offensive coordinator with the Buccaneers and Browns before enjoying a wildly successful 2-year stint at the University of Georgia. With the Buccaneers, the only team Monken has ever called plays for, his offenses were explosive passing attacks, but turned the ball over at a pretty high rate. With the Ravens, Monken will be tasked with marrying Greg Roman's run game with a more sophisticated pass game. Okay. So I'm pretty convinced, Randy, if I send this to you, you're sending this back to me with explain some of these terms. So I'm going to put out my issues with this, and then I'll let you tell me what your issues are. One, you've just said he's in the air raid offense, which is not a sophisticated passing offense.
No.
It's not. You can learn this in probably like 20 minutes. I got some books you can read. If you need to know, hit me up in the comments. I'll let you know what the books are. Okay. Then you've got wildly successful career at the University of Georgia, which, again, my miniature little plug, the SEC is not the NFL. It never has been. It never will be. Alabama's best football team they've ever fielded could never beat the 0-16 Browns. No. And people who think that can happen is just insane. And then we're talking about – go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like, that's just a stupid – I hate that argument.
Yeah. So then we have this explosive passing attack that turns the ball over at a high rate. And then we end with it's a sophisticated passing offense. I'm having a hard time putting all this together, but maybe, Randy, you've got the key that you can figure this one out for me.
I had a couple issues with that. You're right. The air raid's not a sophisticated passing offense. Patrick Mahomes has had tons of success in the air raid offense, and you can find I don't know exactly where it's printed, but I have heard him before say that it is not sophisticated. I've heard him talk about that it doesn't require a lot of reading the defense or anything like that. And the reason he's so good at it is just because he's so freaking insanely talented. But another thing I have with it is with air raid, it just doesn't fit Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson is
Thank you.
An air raid
somebody else is speaking the truth to people here.
And don't get me wrong. Like I don't hate on Lamar Jackson just to hate on Lamar Jackson.
But that's okay.
The NFL told you what they think about Lamar Jackson, and nobody wanted to listen. They kept saying it was collusion, this and that. No, you know what? Teams will do whatever it takes to try and win. That's why they go out and, the Cowboys sign someone like Greg Hardy, who's an absolute psychopath. That's why the Browns overlooked the stuff with Deshaun Watson. Teams will do what it takes to win. They'll pay 2 first-round picks for Russell Wilson or, Aaron Rodgers, who spends half his life drinking hallucinogenic tea. And they'll take these guys because they think they're going to turn the franchise around. That's what it's going to take. Well, Lamar Jackson was out there for everybody to negotiate with, and nobody wanted to negotiate with him. He fits. He's a good quarterback in the right system. He probably would fit a, Chip Kelly-esque system. He could probably fit. Obviously the Greg Roman system worked well for him, but the NFL told you what they thought about Lamar Jackson, and he's not a good enough passer for you to win consistently with. And that's why, let's be honest, they didn't look that much different with Tyler Huntley out there. So
right. Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. It blew my mind that they were willing to pay Jackson all of that.
Exactly.
And then especially in an air raid offense where you're asking your quarterback to throw the ball downfield constantly and not turn it over. I don't see how Lamar Jackson's going to do that.
Well, he's getting set up into an offense that has a high turnover rate. Just the offense itself has a high turnover rate. Okay, I don't care how wildly successful he is at Georgia doing this stuff. We saw this in Cleveland, and we saw Baker Mayfield throw interceptions at a pretty high rate.
And you know what else we saw? Was Odell Beckham Jr. was in that offense and hated it.
And had a meltdown. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and was over there, him and his buddy Jarvis Landry were screaming for teams to come and trade for him, which, of course, Jarvis never said that because he changed the culture, but he did say it. But they were over there begging for the Cardinals and the 49ers to come and trade for them because they hated that offense so much. So now Beckham, of course, Beckham went and joined it because it's $15 million guaranteed, but it's funny to me. They are a very smart franchise. They've won Super Bowls. They've done some brilliant things to consistently win. But I'm like, this offseason, I'm like, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, they're doing nothing that makes sense.
So I've said it. I've said before, I think they're just one match away from a dumpster fire. They're just one event to spark it, and it's going to go up in flames. They know. See, I'm going to come back to your other point here. They know who Lamar Jackson is, and they signed up for it. Okay, so now you've got to bring in, and I always like to tell this to other people also, why don't you put Lamar Jackson in a pro-style offense? Well, NFL teams got to watch him run a pro-style offense at Louisville and decided he should play wide receiver in the NFL. So now what we're doing is we're making an offense. I think it's going to be this hybrid thing where they're going to try to keep Greg Roman's running game and add the air raid concepts, which you read receivers, not defenses in an air raid system. right? So the receivers line up. They look at where the defensive backs are at. They run straight out. This is traditional air raid. You run straight out, and depends on how that defensive back reacts, that's what the receiver is doing. And so the quarterback has to just watch and see what his receiver does and then throw him the ball. This is why Brandon Weeden was so terrible, is because he couldn't anticipate where the receiver is going to be, because he's like doing this Oklahoma State thing where he's like watching. Oklahoma State also ran an air raid, watching the receiver, just staring him down, waiting for them to stop so we can throw him the ball. But the Ravens know what they have in Lamar Jackson, so this is what they bring in.
Yeah. I just don't get it. And we saw just how bad it could go. I mean, Baker Mayfield could be a very accurate quarterback. He was incredibly accurate at Oklahoma, but you put him in that air raid offense, and it was like him and Odell Beckham were just never on the same page. He was throwing it 10 yards beyond it because Beckham.
I would dare to say that Baker understood the air raid offense because he played in some kind of a hybrid mix of that stuff at Oklahoma. I'm guessing Beckham didn't know what the elf he was supposed to be doing.
There you go.
And got all upset. And then you got like people out there going to make a living off of like, let me find a way to trash Baker Mayfield on my film study so I can make myself look smart, stuff going on. But I digress even more. Let's switch topics. Let's go on to the recent NFL rule changes. And we got to wrap this up soon here. So the NFL has made 3 rule changes. 3. Unos, dos, tres. Number 1, you are now allowed to have an emergency quarterback in uniform on the sidelines, even though they don't count against the, I believe it's 45 player. Is that right? 45?
46.
46 that you dress. So that's there. That's part of the NFC championship game, right? With Brock Purdy, throwing him out there again, hurt. They've also changed the rule where you can call a fair catch within the 25 yards. And I want to stop here for a second, Randy. Maybe you can explain the rule to me, because I don't really quite understand it. All I'm understanding is that they're going to allow people to call fair catches between the end zone and the 25. And it's going to go to the 25.
Correct. But basically, just anything, fair catch on the 5, the 10, whatever, it's basically going to be a touchback. So you're just giving the player the option of just, basically doing the touchback from there.
I think this is going to be a disaster, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think it could be. I get the point of it. The concussions were on the rise again on kickoff. So I guess the NFL is really trying to say, trying to lower the concussions, or at least trying to say they are. They don't care about player safety, which I know we're going to get into that. But you also can prove they don't care about player safety with that 46-man rule. I mean, that to me, that's pathetic. You know this is a violent game and players get hurt, so why the hell can't you dress all your entire team and play them all? And why did they ever get rid of that emergency quarterback rule anyway? They sit there and say they care about player safety, and they'll make a rule like this, which is, that's just their way of saying they care about it. But
I would have to agree. The NFL ownership.
We are the Borg. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
The NFL owners, although all of you know that I affectionately call the Borg, have decided that this is their homage to player safety. We're going to reduce the amount of concussions on kickoffs by letting people call fair catches. My question is, you're going to change the muff rule, because if you remember right, if you muff a kickoff, you can't advance it.
Right.
So a muff here is when you don't catch the ball cleanly. So say you throw up that fair catch wave, you try to catch the ball, you don't catch it, the ball lands on the ground, and then you jump on it. The ball's going on the 3-yard line, if that's where you muffed it. So why would you even attempt this? Because you're just screwed if you drop it.
And that's why you're seeing special teams coaches are adamant that it's not going to help and could cause more problems. I don't understand why they make these rules without, really kind of. It's like I don't know where they get their ideas from, but they don't get it from those that are involved in the game. It seems like.
Oh, this is pretty simple. Oh, look, we have 19 concussions on kickoffs. Let's do something to make it look like we give a crap about our players. And if we can get J.C. Treader on board, that's even better.
Don't get me started on Trevor.
Let's go to the next rule that was changed.
I've already made several remarks about how the OT players are actually showing up to OTAs now that Treader's gone.
Oh, JC Treader. Okay, so the NFL owners have approved flex scheduling for Thursday Night Football. So to me, I remember reading an article here by Albert Breer on ESPN who kind of suggested this may go on. And you don't have to push me too far down the conspiracy theory aisle to get me going. Yeah. Like, the NFL's got on one hand, look at this nice thing we're doing for safety. While the other hand's like, yeah, but we're going to take it all away with this hand. So now we've got Thursday Night Football flexing, which my concern, now I've noticed that in an amended version of this, you have 28 days in advance. You can only do it for between weeks 2 and 17. And 28 days in advance was the big one. So that fans who had bought tickets and who had travel plans have about 4 weeks to get out of this or rearrange it for that sake. But that was going to be my biggest concern. If I'm buying Thursday Night Football tickets, I don't want to be flexed out when I'm getting ready to go on my trip.
Yeah. I agree. I hate the idea of the flexing. It's ridiculous. But you're absolutely right. They even Thursday Night Football is proof that they don't care about the player safety because, any one of us can go and suffer some kind of a small injury. Like I threw my back out last week, and I'm finally getting back into it today. And I literally just moved something heavy and hurt myself. These guys are going out there and basically getting hit by a vehicle over and over is what they're doing. They're getting destroyed. They're getting beat up, and every NFL player will tell you it's not till Wednesday till they really start to feel like they're recovering. So then the NFL is like, cool, we'll put you out on the football field Thursday night and let you go do it all over again. So if you care about player safety at all, first of all, Thursday Night Football wouldn't be a thing. The only way you should ever do it is if they had the bye week before, or if they've had a bye week and they do Thursday and they do Thursday the following week. But to do it on a short week like that is absolutely ridiculous. And like I said, it goes back to that 46 player thing. If you care about player safety, let them play their entire team. If somebody needs a breather or whatever, if someone gets injured, you're like, oh, well, we can't, this guy's just got to play the whole game because we couldn't dress everybody. It's if you care about player safety, then actually care about it. Don't just do these stupid things to pretend like it.
Oh, they're the Borg. They're going to have their way, and you are going to assimilate and give you all. They're going to make you give them all their money.
And it works
go ahead.
I was going to say it works because look at how crazy people got about Deshaun Watson getting a fully guaranteed contract. You've got NBA players, you got Major League Baseball players. They get fully guaranteed contracts and nobody bats an eye. But then in the NFL, which is the most violent of all these sports, where you can actually become paralyzed. We saw a guy almost die on the field. Technically, I think his heart did stop, they said, last year. And people are pissed off that the poor, defenseless billionaires have to actually pay the guys who were paying the money to go play. They've done such a good job convincing us that the players are the bad guys and they're the good guys, and nobody even realizes they're doing it, where Steve Biscotti going out there, I don't think Deshaun Watson's the right guy to get the money. No, you're pissed Deshaun Watson got the money because now you got to pay Lamar Jackson, you asshole. Don't sit here and pretend like you're some moral on some moral high ground.
See, Randy, we're simpatico on this issue.
I get angry about all
this stuff you're talking about. Like my listeners, all 5 of them are out there.
Yeah,
they hear this every week from me. Like, these owners are a bunch of jerks. They take your money. They don't care about anything else. Don't sit there and tell me that they're all upset about Deshaun Watson. What they're really upset is he spoke up and said something about his owner, which pissed his owner off, and now they're going to go out and destroy him. You're going to tell me, I highlighted a couple weeks ago where the NFL is being investigated by the attorney generals of California and New York because in their headquarters and the offices in Los Angeles where they do NFL Network, they had over 30 complaints from women to HR, and the HR department allegedly told their supervisors and they were retaliated against. And both states' attorney generals are investigating this. And then you're going to tell me Deshaun Watson's the problem?
Well, look at how quick Robert Kraft's issues went away. Or remember when it got reported that the Texans paid for 66 different hotels for Watson and over a 17-month period to have those women there. But then all of a sudden, nothing happened. It's weird how the rich billionaires Nothing happens to them. But, Deshaun Watson's the guy that we all want to hate. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything he did was right. But it sure seems like they just pick and choose who the bad guy is and who they're going to highlight as the bad guy. And every single time people buy it hook, line, and sinker, they did it again with his contract. And it's absolutely insane. I don't understand how people don't see it.
You get the PR people to come out. You get the NFL employees that look like they're neutral. And then they come out and they say, but it's not about, this or that. It's about this. And then then the talking points are out. And that's what everybody's saying.
I don't know if you saw Rich Eisen got into it a little with Eddie McDonald from our site, because Eddie was like, Rich Eisen tweeted something about Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed. And Eddie was like, you do realize this is not the first fully guaranteed contract. You know that Aaron Rodgers was able to get a fully guaranteed deal and Kirk Cousins had a fully guaranteed deal. And then Eisen, that's not to the tune of $230 million, Edward. It's like, well, yeah, no crap. That's because salaries go up. So when he got his contract, it was higher. But then you look at some of these other guys, they're going above his per year. But the difference is the reason Cousins got a full guarantee and the reason Deshaun Watson got a full guarantee is because they had options. One was in free agency. One had 13 freaking teams trying to trade for him. Everyone acts like the Browns are, the devil because they signed Watson. 13 teams, nearly half of the damn NFL wanted him.
Yep.
And afterwards, like there was reports that teams said, well, we would have matched that contract. We'd have given him the full guarantee. So it was because of leverage is why he got the full guarantee.
Yep, leverage. So, and that's the same thing in our lives, right? I mean, I had a job and I had a supervisor tell me that crap rolls downhill and then wouldn't let me make the decisions I needed to make, but I was going to be responsible for his idiotic decisions.
Sounds fair.
And so then something I said, then I said at one point, I said, this is what you pay me to do. I'm going to do this job. It jumped down my throat. You do this because you love it and this and this and that. And I was like, you know what? I got options. I don't have to be here. And I left. That's what I did, because I had leverage. I had a skill. I could market and I could make that happen. So that's what I did. I mean, why am I going to stick around with this crap when I can just market myself and get a better pay, better job? Why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't Deshaun Watson do it?
Well, and you notice like all the people that, they do the stat scouting and they love the QB wins and they'll go on there and be like, oh, Deshaun Watson sucks. The last time he was a starter, he was 4-12. I'm like, you literally paid no attention to what went on there then. Like that team was a dumpster fire and they made him the scapegoat. And just like with NFL owners, people were buying a hook, line, and sinker. So,
yeah, I don't, this is why I call them the Borg. They work as a collective for the good of the collective. That's what they're about. That's why I call them the Borg. They function as a unit. Well, guys, we're on it. We're already up to way over time I wanted to be here tonight. So, Randy, any parting thoughts here, man?
Oh, not much other than, hey, that's, I'm excited I know it's only shorts and T-shirts, but I'm excited to see the Browns at OTAs, excited to see some videos of the new players out there. So, I'm stoked about this season, just ready to get it going.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm getting tired of all the Ravens hate I got to talk to about. I never get tired of hating on the Ravens, but I'd rather have 4 segments of Browns news than trying to deal with other stuff. But I'm ready for this to get going. I think no matter what happens, I'll still be hating on the owners, man. Those people just make me mad. Billionaires, I think they can do whatever they want. Anyway, again, you're going to get me upset about these owners. But I should start calling them the rulers of the NFL because that's pretty much how they act.
Yeah.
Ruining the game for everyone.
I can get going on it for a while too, and it drives me crazy because I feel like there's some people out there that see it, but it's such a small percentage, and they do a good job. You got guys in the NFL Network that they pay them, so of course they're going to go out there and defend the owners and make us.
NFL employee is going to tell us what to think.
So they make us.
And we're supposed to believe
player wants to get paid for his. Okay, yeah, he's the bad guy.
Yep, he's the bad guy. Yep. All right, well, everybody, thanks for listening, and next week we'll do it all again.
Thank you for listening to the What the Elf Was That podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow host Joel Cade on Twitter @The Left Guard.